However, one of the problems we have is that we are not able to say why there is this relationship. So we could say that there was a relationship, but we don't know why. And we need to do quite a lot of more work to find out why physical activity has such a positive, beneficial effect on academic attainment. Now, a few suggestions have been put forward. So one is that physical activity actually increases our attention. So we're able to focus more on what we're doing. So anybody who's spent much time with a 10-year-old will know if they go and run around for 10 minutes, come back, they're much more able to concentrate on what you're asking them to do in class than before when they've got all this hyped up energy and they're raring to go. So this sort of makes sense. There's also thoughts about the social factors. So the fact that physical activity increases self-esteem and it makes us happier. So potentially this could then have an impact on, this could explain why we're then doing better at school. There's also the biological mechanisms. So that physical activity increases blood flow and increases oxygen to the brain, and that this then has an impact and helps us do better at school. But there's more research that needed to be done in this area. And there's a few kind of qualify better. It's not a straightforward linear relationship. So what I mean by that is that we don't find that our elite athletes are all members of Mensa. Okay? So we'd think about it, a good example is probably Wayne Rooney. Okay? Now, I'm not being too negative, but I would say that as far as I know, he doesn't get the top points on an IQ test. Okay? So there's obviously a cut-off where the higher the physical activity stops having as much of an impact. But given at the moment that we've all got really low levels of activity, it's quite difficult to tease out why. We also don't know whether it's the type of activity we're doing. So it could be that when we're doing activity in groups, this has a better impact on the social factors. So we do better with people, and then that has an impact on our academic attainment. So we need to do a bit more work to try and tease out what it is about this physical activity that's beneficial. However, I would say that there's a lot of research that shows that these same sort of factors are also evident in adults too. So review papers have found that when we look at just aerobic activity, so running as opposed to stretching or doing yoga or something, we find that across the lifespan, more of this aerobic activity is beneficial for our thinking skills in children, in young adults, and in older adults as well. So it seems to be that the more activity we're doing, the better the impact it has. Okay? Now, there's also work that's looked not just at these thinking skills in adults, but it's also looked at factors like depression and self-esteem, and also other health-related factors. And it's found that generally the more activity you're doing, the more beneficial it is for all of these areas. Work that's looked at quality of life in elderly adults has found that those who are doing more activity report a better quality of life. They're likely to have less falls, they're likely to have to be able to stay in their own home longer, which is often seen as beneficial. Depends whether you've got somebody to do your dishes for you or not, I think, you know. But generally these things are beneficial the more activity we're doing. And this is across our whole lifespan. Now, just as a couple of final points, because I think I've probably gone on for long enough, while I've talked about the positive impacts of physical activity, there is also literature that's shown more of the negative impact of obesity. Now, physical activity and obesity are intricately linked, but they're not completely dependent on each other. So you can do lots of activity, but you can still have a problem with your weight. So a stereotypical image of this would be the 1980s Ireland rugby team, if many people remember them. There were some big guys there, really big guys. And it wasn't just that they were muscly, they just drank a lot of Guinness, okay? So they were brilliant, not all of them, I'm being very stereotypical here, but just to give you a kind of image that you can still do activity, but if you're taking in 4,000 calories, you're gonna still have a problem, okay? So separately from the physical activity literature, there's also quite a lot of research that's shown that obesity is detrimental to these same thinking skills and mental abilities. And that's across the lifespan as well. So not just in children, but also in young adults and also in older adults. That if you've got high levels of obesity, you're also likely to have more problems with these sort of mental skills. And given that these mental skills are important for your career, the job you do, and your general life functioning, it's important that we actually look after these mental ability. So we need to try and keep a balance between the right level of physical activity and the right calorie intake as well. Now, just to summarise, so that you can grab a glass of water there, I think what I've been hopefully convincing you is that physical activity is important for more than just your physical health, that your psychological health benefits as well. Now, some of the best public health advice says that we should try and incorporate physical activity into our daily routine. So think about walking up the stairs instead of taking the escalator, or getting off the bus one stop earlier and building a bit of a walk that way. And just be able to do little bits can actually make quite a big impact. Thank you very much.